All right, we've been talking about evolution, which is a change in a population over time. So now we're going to talk about how evolution occurs. What are the mechanisms of evolution? How did we get such a variety of species? How did such a variety of species evolve? Darwin came up with a theory of natural selection. I hope you've all watched the video already that I assigned on Monday about Darwin and natural selection. So I'm just going to hit on some of the basics here. So Darwin came up with the theory of natural selection, and it says that members of a population have heritable variation, meaning that in a population there are differences between all the individuals. Just like you are not like your parents exactly, and you're not like your siblings exactly, and you're not like your neighbors exactly, or your everyone in the city exactly. There are differences between everyone. Just like these moths, they actually come in a lighter variety and a darker variety and a whole lot in between. We also know that more individuals are produced in each generation than the environment can support. So there's an overwhelming number of individuals that the environment cannot, there's not enough available resources for the environment to support that many individuals. Some of the individuals have adaptive characteristics, meaning they have some kind of advantage. For example, in this picture over here, this dark moth is pretty hard to see. So it's going to have an advantage when it comes to predators trying to eat it. The predator is going to see this white moth first. That's just one example. So that trait there in that moth, the dark versus light, that would result in increased survival and reproduction. So that means this dark moth here is more likely to survive long enough to pass its genes, its alleles, onto an offspring, whereas this moth is not as likely to produce offspring before it's eaten. So it's not just survival, it's survival and the ability to reproduce and pass those genes on. Natural selection can result in a population adapted to conditions in the local environment as the environment changes. So this is actually a famous example with these. These are called peppered moths. And before the Industrial Revolution, there were a whole lot of trees lining the streets, and they were a light-colored trunk. So with the light-colored trunk, these lighter moths actually had a favorable trait because they blended into the light-colored bark. However, after the Industrial Revolution, there was a lot of pollution, and it actually turned the light-colored bark of these trees much, much darker. And then suddenly, these darker moths were the ones that had the favorable trait and were able to reproduce and produce offspring. So we actually saw evolution taking place when we look at these peppered moths and how their populations changed after the Industrial Revolution. Okay. Some of the terminology that Darwin came up with is fitness. So fitness is going to be the reproductive success of an individual. If we're not just talking about how fit are you working out and going to the gym? This is talking about, will this mouse right here, for example, this dormouse, survive long enough to produce offspring? So it's the reproductive success. And why we care about whether they produce offspring? Because that would allow their alleles to stay in a population. So one thing that can help with reproductive success, there are many different things, but one thing is background matching, which is camouflaging. That's what this is showing here. That can be an adaptation. An adaptation is a change that helps a species become more suited to its environment. And this can be this is a product of natural selection. So what that means is, let's say this white mouse and this brown mouse are both in this environment right here with these leaves in the background. If both the white mouse and the brown mouse are there, the white mouse is the one that's going to stand out. So that's the one most likely to be eaten by a predator. That mouse is going to be eliminated from this population right here. And the genes that will be passed on to offspring will be this coloring right here that blends in. This camouflages better to these leaves. That will eventually be an adaptation to camouflage for this dormouse. Now, it would be the opposite if this dormouse was over in this environment. Then the white one would have better reproductive success. So we have fitness, reproductive success of an individual, and adaptation, which is a change that helps the species become more suited to its environment. Okay, so we've been talking about natural selection, where the environment is what is selecting individuals that will reproduce. Now let's talk about artificial selection. In artificial selection, it's not the environment that selects which genes will stay in the gene pool, which alleles will continue, because it's a breeder that chooses who reproduces. So just like in dogs, we know dogs came from wolves. Actually, they all descended from the gray wolf. And we get such a vast variety of different types of dogs nowadays. That's due mostly to artificial selection, where breeders are picking traits that they like. So when there's a mutation, such as short legs, I wish I had that picture up here for you guys. You all know what a dachshund is. Cute little dogs that look like little hot dogs with short legs. Let's say that there is a mutation, which is actually just one allele, that stunts the growth factor, so it leads to shorter legs, and a breeder likes this mutation. So they can actually select just the shorter leg dogs and breed those together, and eventually you get a dog with short legs, because that is the trait that was selected for. It's an artificial selection. We see this also in our cornfields around here. Did you know corn used to look like this right here? And we selected the corn with the bigger kernels. They were more nutritious, and kept selecting and breeding only those together, and breeding only those together, and breeding only those together, until we get these massive ears of corn over many, many, many generations. This is not something that happens in one generation, right? This is over many, many generations of mutations and selection. And we end up with corn that we see today. Same thing happened with wild mustard. There were mutations that led to different varieties. And after artificial breeding, we came up with Chinese cabbage, Brussels sprouts, and kohlrabi. These are all examples of artificial selection. And from natural selection and artificial selection, Darwin proposed that that is where all these different organisms came from. And he was on the right track. There's more to the story, which I'm going to talk about in the next video here. But first, what I want to do is show you the lab that we have this week for natural and artificial selection. Let me get over there. It's another gizmo. So I've assigned you another gizmo. This one's really fun. So I want to show you how to use it. There's different, you can do natural selection and artificial selection. So let's pick natural selection first. And you can change the color of the background. I think I have in your lab to set it at blue by using the slider, but I can change it to different colors. And then you can set the mutation rate by using this slider here. So for the first lab, you're actually going to set it on a mutation rate of 2, the first exercise in the lab. And you're going to keep it on natural selection. And you're going to hit play and watch what happens. We're going to see how long it takes. Oh, I have the speed set too high. See over here, you can set the speed. Let me reset that. Okay, so I can reset it and we'll run it again. And you see they're going to breed over here. And these are actually mutations. And we have that bird coming in. That's the predator. It's eating the ones that he sees. Okay, so we're seeing selection happening within the environment. I'm going to see how long it takes for these bugs to turn blue. Why do I think they're going to turn blue? Because the blue would be an adaptation in this environment. I'm going to speed it up just a little bit. Okay, we're on generation 8. We're starting to see a bunch of more mutations. Speed it up a little more. Okay, and we see they start turning blue there. So what I want you guys to do is see how long it takes for all those bugs to turn blue. And then you can switch it over to, oh, they're beetles, by the way. Switch it over to artificial selection and keep the blue coloring, although it doesn't matter with artificial selection at all. And then we can change the mutation rate back and forth. So one of them has you set it on 8, or as close to 8 as you can get. Sometimes it's hard. There we go. Now, when you're doing artificial selection, did I reset it? Okay. You actually need to drag your mating pairs. And then the first generation is not going to matter. They are all the same genotype. Okay, but I have it set to do mutations. So I'm going to drag them all over to the mating area, and they have mated. And we can see that these circles are mutations. So I can select for any mutation I want. Let's say I want to turn them red. I can turn them red. But first what I need to do is throw away the ones I do not want to breed. So I'm throwing 10 of those away by dragging them into this trash can. I'm going to try to turn the bugs red. Although I think in your lab I asked you to turn it blue. Okay, and what I want you guys to do, see now I can click on these and see what the mutation is. This one has a red. This one also has a red. Let's mate these two together. And we're going to try to turn all the bugs red. But you can, I'm just going to do it real quick so we have time. See how many generations it takes you to turn the bugs red using artificial selection. So once you do that, same thing again, and we can throw away the ones we don't want. Okay, and you keep doing that, see how many generations it will take. So that's one of your labs. Let's see, what else I'm going to show you. Here's the other lab. This one, you get to be a bird, and you're going to go in and eat moths. So we're going to, you can do light trees, you can do dark trees. There's light trees. You can look at the description of the population. So the start of year 1, they're half dark and half light. They'll give you tables and graphs as we do this. And then you just hit play. Now when you hit play, you have to be the hunter. So I need to click on any moths that I can see. And there are light ones and dark ones. I don't see any more. I'm going to go to the next tree and I'm going to click some more. See if I can find you guys a light one. Don't forget to hit the next tree button. That one took me a while to find. Okay, there's a light one right there. But they're a lot harder to find. Okay, and year 1 is over. And I can see the percentages of the different phenotypes have already changed between dark and light. I actually ate 8 dark moths and 1 light moth. So anyway, I want you guys to answer the questions on the lab that I've posted and using these gizmos. And let me know what you guys think. I really like these. All right, I'm going to end this right here, and I will start again to show you the rest of the story for evolution, the mechanisms of evolution.